During that time, though, because prior to that I was working with a number of Korean companies in reference to F.A.R. infrared, so I was very familiar with nanotechnology, et cetera, this way, as compared to other scientists at that time from other disciplines, my discipline being industrial toxicology. And so I was familiar with terms in that field, and in that, once we identified what it was, then was able to make the association with advanced nanomaterials. Advanced nanomaterials have grown since 1980 and started in research bases, privately, governmentally, and all different kinds of funding involved in that type of research. But at the same time, that now they're used in commercial applications. The precedent at that time was that these materials were so small that they should not be a threat to the environment, to the human health, or anything. What basically happened on the regulatory side, it was placed through the system of approval for these new compounds, new substances, etc., without having any toxicology studies. And the original toxicology studies that were showing even initiation cancer or anything was done by Dr. Gotti out of, I believe it was the University of Rome. And this was in end of 2006, early 2007. Now there is my publisher for the Comprehensive Handbook of Hazardous Materials, which was my leading environmental book, which was an international bestseller, but at the same time it's used in every hazardous materials operation, and also part of the hazard communication standard reference is in the revised hazard communication standard. Right to know. In there, it was determined that there was no guidelines or anything. So a lot happened, meaning the science community, the environmental, the engineering, etc., the multiple different disciplines woke up. But at the same time, these materials are now used in medicines, gene therapies, coatings, the same materials that I found in Morgellons. Individuals, those two-part polyester resins are also used in pre-treating of the cells for stem cells. They're used as tags being how to identify who is the manufacturer, or who created it, because you need some kind of identity, which is called, correct term is molecular brand. I currently have now isolated some nasal, what is called mesogens, and it's comparative between Los Angeles, New York, and the Middle East, and they all match the same analysis. And that report will be coming out between now and June. So if that helps you a little bit, that's the nutshell.
Yeah. So where are we now with Morgellons? I mean, people have been theoretically dealing with this since, at least as far as I know, around 2006, 2007. This is when Mary Latow went public with her organization, and Dr. Randy Wymore came onto the scene and started doing his work. So now we're, 4 or 5 years into this. Where are people now with it? Is it progressing? What's happening with the complex we know as Morgellons?
I can't speak for any individual researchers or professional groups outside of the groups that I'm associated with, but I can say this was what was, I'm going to call it public information. An independent study was supposed to be funded and done through Kaiser Permanente, which was completed, I believe, in the end of 2009 or early 2010. I think it was 2009, though, and it was turned over to the military, meaning the Army, and no report was released.
And the amount of money that they spent on that was a pittance. It was $1 million. Right? And you can't really generate a serious research program for $1 million. Am I correct in that assumption?
If you want to milk it, you can. Look what we did with the shoestring budget and found out that it was, and we didn't even have shoes. We found out what it was.
Right.
Meaning, using Raman technology. Yes, the Raman technology analysis might be expensive because it wasn't state-of-the-art at that time. I mean, it was beyond state-of-the-art. But you were never wrong. It was 100% accurate. And you can find what you want to find or not find what you want to find. The other thing is, if you use a comparison of that $1 million budget to what was spent in finding it versus the millions of dollars of budget it was used in developing and researching advanced nanomaterials, meaning to create those entities, it's quite different,
Right, right.
Like 50 million and beyond. I mean, just in hospitals that are using that technology, some of the grants that are given in different agencies, 215 million they start out per year. So there can be a lot of budget in it. It's a very big industry. But to answer your question, too, after that, some private companies were looking at developing different sensors to look at it, and then, funding and everything along that line came about, or not came about. In other words, they didn't get the funding to complete the working models.
So are there still legions of quote-unquote Morgellons sufferers with the external symptoms of the lesions and the extruding of the fibers, or has that abated, and are more of the symptoms internal now? Has the complex literally gone underground in the body? What's your take on that?
No, it always was internal.
Right.
So
okay.
what experienced on the skin was basically the non-binding, or what was the body rejecting it internally. It always did what I said originally, went to the kidney, to the small intestine, intestinal tract, and the upper bronchial area. And the other thing with this is that at that time, those were 1- and 2-dimensional, going into 3-dimensional nanomaterials or advanced materials. Now, the 3-dimensional can be 8 layers thick, and it's thin film. There's a lot of advances that have been occurring that are now coming about. So what I'm trying to say to you, Robert, it's the same version is not the same what it was 5 years ago as what is now. And these materials are being used in a lot of commercial available products now.
Interesting. Do you feel like that the population were guinea pigs, so to speak?
I don't know. It's anything goes right now.
Yeah. If somebody had the internal symptoms as well as the external symptoms, what course of action would you recommend? I know that you've been an advocate of the F.A.R. infrared sauna experience, which I had my first one last week, by the way, and it was terrific.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
What would you suggest for folks?
Yeah, I recommend Radiant Heat in particular. I've always used the MPS products by MPS Global because it made pure F.A.R. infrared, and what my whole goal within detox and giving back that life force was to have a piece of equipment that did not have may have a human push a button, but not interfere with that field, so that the body could generate its own radiant heat, absorb it, generate its own radiant heat, and then start expelling the toxins. And at the same time, with many of these materials, they're coated in a silane, S-I-L-A-N-E, and a siloxane base compound, and that compound is a nitrogen, ammonium ion, meaning an NH4, and the other polymer with it, the other plastic residue polymers. And what happens is it acts it sends out like an electricity, and it shocks you because it's designed to kill bacteria as like an antimicrobial agent, those compounds are. But when you have it in your body and it's not supposed to be in your body, it starts killing off your natural flora, etc. That's why back to your question is what should you use? Far infrared, oxygen, also a good GI cleanse so that it cleans out the membrane, the natural membrane within the body, so that you can regenerate a good GI tract and getting the enzymes together. And it's where a lot of people need to really look at what they eat, start eating healthy, and start experiencing other ethnic foods, because a lot of these ethnic foods are very beneficial to the health.
What would you recommend, like Indian food with turmeric or Chinese
that's
food?
it. But we here at Integrative Health Systems made a beautiful product, Canary Island Blend, and it was based on, we had the story of the pirates that were from Puerto Rico, but at the same time it used the natural fruits and vegetables of the islands, meaning canepa, acai. We were the first to put watermelon in a bottle and okra in a bottle, in a capsule outside of a pickle jar, and with the canepas, because it literally heals the intestinal colon and also the esophagus. If you have foreign material or any of that material in your body and you take or eat these fruits, you will cough and it will expel out.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's taking that knowledge. We really, because of my work in genetics and toxic exposures, trying to heal back the genes without doing any, I'm going to say traditional, which is now the gene therapies of injections and using viral protein envelopes and all those other big words. I personally wanted to create for Integrative Health Systems products that were based on ancient medicinals of antiquity and at the same time had enough food sources of spices in it when times got rough. And it's very good, but it's taking all that knowledge and putting it into a little capsule. And that's what a lot of people. It's even when I grew up, probably as you grew up, meaning when you had a reference section in the library, you were always told that those books were guarded and, you could only loan it out for a couple hours or whatever it may be. Now you can buy them for $0.25 on the library lot. Why are we getting rid of our text so that you don't have those temples of knowledge, Because a lot of books aren't on an e-book or anything like that, especially the older ones.
Yeah, no,
ones out of print where there's a lot of detail. Science at the turn of the century and in the years in the past, they went into detail and description. Now it's not as detailed.
Right. Well, one of the details that people need to know about is your website, because if they go there, they can see your products, and I would imagine that you would have protocols and all kinds of sort of kits for people to plug into.
And at the same time, if an individual's ill or anything, I do require, because I work directly with their physicians, a physician referral, and we set that up for the patients when it's a patient versus just a client or someone who's just asking about stuff. And that is located at StaningerReport.com, and I appreciate sharing that information with the listeners on your show.
So you are working with Michael on his little blooming network that he's got going, and of course one of the issues that he's been on the front lines and in trenches with is this blue plague down in the Gulf of Mexico, and he's done stellar work with this. And I'm curious. I'd love to get your take on the blue plague, and again, can your work and some of the things that you're involved in, can it help the people down in the Gulf Coast with their symptoms?
Definitely, but one has to remember this is just what happened, like with the Kuwaiti fires at the end of Desert Storm, which became Desert Shield, and the thing is, those residues, those sources are still down there. They're in the water. They're in the sand. If you're still in that source of contamination and you still have it in your body, you need to get it out, but you also need to clean up the area.